Hi everyone, this is Mindy and welcome to my channel. In today's video, I am going to be sharing with you my top 3 products that I always use when adhering small die cuts. I was so excited to see this release from Honeybee Stamps because my husband loves fishing. This video is also a part of a video hop, which I will have more information down below in the video description. So be sure to leave a comment to be entered in the giveaway, and I will also have a link to the next person in the hop. Now let's get started with the card. So quite honestly, going into this, I really did not know what I was going to make for a card. I knew I wanted to use the lures, but I just wasn't really sure what I was going to do or have a layout in mind. So I grabbed the fishnet stencil. I'm going to start with that and create my background. And that's kind of where I go with things sometimes. Is I'll start with my background and then build around it to see where my background went. I'm going to be using Kraft Cardstock that is cut to 4 1/4 by 5 1/2. And I just put that down on my magnetic work surface using some repositionable tape and then place the stencil over the top. I'm starting with, I think this was brushed corduroy. I will have all of the supplies listed down below in the video description, but I started with this kind of light brown for my main background layer. Now, I wasn't loving it. So what I did is I just kind of peeled back a corner, took a look at it. Yep, wasn't loving it. So I decided to just leave the stencil in place, and I'm going to come in with walnut stain. So I liked this a lot better. So I'm going to brush this all over that fishnet background, and I'm kind of doing it haphazardly. I'm not being real careful if everything is perfectly blended or evenly blended. So there are some light spots and dark spots. And then I'm going to remove the stencil, and I'm going to go back over my background, kind of tone down that Kraft cardstock, really give it more of a vintage look. So I started with picking up some of that excess ink that's around my card front, and then I'm also going to pick up a little bit of that walnut stain and tap it off a little bit and come over the background. Now, of course, everything is better with splatter because I still at this point really wasn't feeling the background. So I just flicked on some water and I'll dab that up with a paper towel. That wasn't really doing it for me, but I'm going to keep pushing through. So what I did was bring in some of that walnut stain that I just smushed down on my work surface. I mixed that with some water and flicked that onto the background. To get maybe some more darker splatters, I probably would have brought in my spray stain, but I didn't think of it at the time. Now I'm also going to splatter on some white. So I put down some of my bleed-proof white paint down on my work surface, mixed that with water, added splatters of the white, which kind of also helps break up this background a little bit. And then I'm going to set this off on the side to dry. So while this is drying, I'm going to work on the lures. Now, these are so cool. I love the examples that the design team has been coming up. I just love the whole concept of them. And honestly, here too, I was kind of going in without a plan. I didn't even have a color scheme in mind. So as always, I start my lovely layers by die cutting them from white. Now, I broke them apart into their groupings. So these are kind of the base of each of the lures. So I did that from white, but instead of ink blending my die cuts, which is what I would normally do, these have layers to them that I thought looked just really cool as plain cardstock. So I dug through my scraps container and found some colors that were just appealing to my eye. I have a light blue, I have a couple different shades of green, and then I have also kind of a sorbet or grapefruit type of color. Now I'm not going to drag you through all of my die cutting because I did bounce around a lot with ideas. So once I kind of settled on some color combinations, I'm just jumping right into attaching all of these together. So this bigger one you can see I did in 2 different shades of blue. There is a little piece you can die cut to add the dot for the eye. And then there's also these smaller pieces where the hooks are, which I did out of a matte silver cardstock. Some handy tools to have on hand when you're doing die cuts like this and layering them up is, for one, tweezers. Of course, I don't work without my tweezers. This little pick and stick tool is super, super helpful to have. And then also, I love working on a type of silicone mat that just kind of holds my die cut in place. So if you're looking at doing any layering or just small layers like this, those are my 3 top tools that I do recommend. Now this guy right here, I was going to go a two-tone green, but decided to leave the base white. I was thinking that I just had too much green going on. I really liked my blue lure, so I didn't want to change it. I didn't want to die cut any more pieces, so I decided to leave his belly white. But that dark green in the front was really bothering me. So even after I had glued everything together, I die cut the front of his face again out of just a shade lighter of a green. So I played around with my layout off screen, landed on one that I liked, and I'm going to work on stamping my sentiments. So this is off of the Hooked on You stamp set. It has so many great fishing sentiments on there, even some that don't really relate to fishing, but since I had the lures on here, this one was going to work perfectly. It says, what does it say? You got me hook, line, and sinker. And I thought that was super cute. I knew my husband would get a kick out of it. So I'm inking it up in the intense black ink and stamping that down on white cardstock. And I'm going to use my coordinating die to die cut that out. I also went ahead and die cut out a few other pieces of it so I can layer it together to create the dimension. I really like the white. I think this is going to pop nicely off of the front of the card. It'll also tie in with my white splatters and the white belly of one of my lures. Now, I'm going to be hand delivering this, obviously, or I could throw it in the mail for him because he does get a kick out of receiving mail, but I wasn't really concerned about how much dimension I was adding to my card. These in particular, I added thin foam squares behind the lures, and then I just kind of placed them on there to get an idea of where I wanted them to go. Now, I was really overthinking this. I couldn't decide if I wanted to have my margins even by going off of the full length of the lure, including the hooks, or going off of the body of the lure. I went with the body, so that is how I lined it up and made sure my margins were even. I thought the lures were more eye-catching, and so that is how I kind of lined that up on the front of the card. I'm going to add a bit of shimmer to my lures with a Nuvo Shimmer pen. It's kind of hard to see on camera, but it's definitely nice and shiny in person. And then I thought I would come in and add some highlights, and I almost screwed up my lures at this point. I want to call them fish, but they're lures. I'm taking a Posca pen, which is a really nice white paint pen, and I started adding highlights, but my Nuvo Shimmer was not dry, so my bottom one kind of wanted to bleed a little bit, so I just kind of quit while I was ahead. I quit messing with everything, and I'm going to leave it as is. So even though I went into this card without really a game plan, I really like how this came out. I love that fishnet in the background, and these lures are just so cool looking. So as I mentioned earlier, the link to the next person in the hop will be listed down below in the video description, along with information about the giveaway and my supplies that I used today for the card. I hope you enjoyed today's card project. If you're not already a subscriber, I would love it if you subscribe to my channel and be sure to hit the bell notification so you're notified when new videos are posted. Thank you so much for joining me today, and I'll see you again real soon.